Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this week's press conference. I'm Steve Fishback with the Public Affairs Office. And last week during our mid-year crime briefing, we went over a lot of information, threw out a lot of numbers. And one of those was a report that sexual assaults had gone up 42% this year. And we understand that that number, that stat, will cause a lot of concern for our citizens and community members. We wanted to provide more context and more information on that topic. So this morning we have Sergeant Allison Rooks with the Sexual Assault Unit, who's going to provide us with more information on that topic. We're also going to have a second part to our presentation this morning. We're going to ask that all questions be held until after that second presenter. So work with me on that. And Sergeant?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Allie Rooks. I'm the sergeant over the Sexual Assault Unit. Thank you for joining us this morning. As Lieutenant Fishback has mentioned, rapes have increased 42% as it is in the first half of this year compared to the same time last year. It's important to remember that this increase involves both adult victims as well as juvenile victims. So in 2021, there have been 98 adult rape cases as compared to 80 in 2020. To put this in perspective without bogging you down in the weeds of statistics and numbers, of those 98 cases, 15 have been cleared by arrest. 10 of those cases were actually reported in 2021, but did not occur in 2021. It occurred in years previously. And then 3 of those cases were actually reported here in Charlotte, but did not occur in Charlotte. We assisted the survivor in making the report. It's important to remember that of those cases, fewer than 10% are strangers. That the vast majority of the cases, the survivor and the suspect are known to one another. When speaking about victims 15 and under, there have been 54 incidents this year compared to 28 in 2020. So this is a 93% increase. In June, our Crimes Against Children unit was here and spoke about this increase and how it is directly related to school being back in session, extracurricular activities, and the delay in reporting there as well. Tragically, in the Crimes Against Children cases, many of those cases involve family members and acquaintances. Like Lieutenant Fishback has noted, CMPD does recognize and is monitoring this increase. We work together with various other entities of this police department, including our crime analysis, and are monitoring the statistics.
Thank you, Sergeant. And next up, we're going to have Detective Adrian Johnson with the Crime Stoppers program to speak with us. Last week, we also discussed the fact that there is a 66% increase in firearms being stolen out of vehicles. That should be a cause of concern for all of us. In addition to the fact that these are very preventable crimes in many cases. We're holding all questions to the end for both the Sexual Assault Sergeant as well as Detective Johnson, due to the fact that Detective Johnson may be able to answer some of the questions that you have that are also connected to sexual assaults and how we proceed with those investigations. So without further, Detective Johnson of Crime Stoppers.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I'm Detective Adrian Johnson with Crime Stoppers. Due to the increase in aggravated assaults, I wanted to talk about addressing the uptick in firearms stolen from vehicles. During our mid-year crime briefing, it was noted that we've seen a 66% increase in firearms being stolen from vehicle. Now, the exact numbers, which are 554 firearms stolen out of vehicles in 2021 so far, compared to 334 in 2020. Although there's no way to correlate the number of firearms, stolen firearms, used in violent crimes with the LFAs that are occurring, there have been several examples of those incidents happening with stolen firearms. One in particular that I wanted to discuss was an investigation headed by the Independence Division that leaked over into the Eastway Division, where several cases were solved by detectives. They were able to close out 3 armed robbery cases, make 2 juvenile arrests for robbery suspects in a spree that took place in over 2 weeks. After making those arrests, the detectives were able to serve a warrant at one of those suspects' homes where 8 firearms were recovered from those 2 juvenile suspects. Out of those 8 firearms, 2 of them were stolen out of vehicles. One of the reports read is that one of the vehicles were unlocked when that firearm was stolen, and another vehicle was broken into by force. So again, we just want to stress to the community to never leave your firearms in your car, for one. Always lock your door. Always keep your valuables out of sight, and report any suspicious activity immediately when seen. Like I said, that was just one example. There are a few more. Like I said, unfortunately, due to the filters in our reporting system, you can't really connect those LFAs with the violent crimes that are happening. But that was just one example. Last but not least, I wanted to touch on CMPD's and Crime Stoppers Firearm by Felon program. This program, it urges people in the community to come forward with information about felons that live in our community that are in possession of firearms. If any arrest is made from those tips, it's an automatic $500 cash reward that tipster will receive. Ways that they can report these crimes is by calling the Crime Stoppers hotline, which is 704-334-1600. Also, they can submit tips by using our P3 Tips app, which you pick up on the Apple phone, or you can get on Android. Last but not least, you can report them by going on charlottecrimestoppers.com. That's our Crime Stoppers website, and submitting that information through that. Also, this year alone, the Crime Stopper program has received over 1,900 tips that led to 103 arrests so far, and we've recovered 56 firearms just this year. So that's 7 more for the total of all of 2020. So we want to thank the community for submitting those tips. We'd like to thank the media for putting all this information out there that we give. And last but not least, these officers and detectives, they work real hard investigating these tips. A lot of times they don't have much to work with, but we have to remember that any information we get is just a lead. And it starts off as that, and sometimes these investigations can take weeks, sometimes months. So from the Crime Stoppers board and myself, we'd like to thank these officers and detectives for working so hard and investigating these tips, looking like it's leading to another record year for Crime Stoppers. So thank you again. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Detective. And at this time, to our media partners in the room, we're going to open it up to questions specifically on the topics of the sexual assault as well as Crime Stoppers.
Just one quick clarification on the stolen gun number. He said 56 recovered. Is he talking stolen guns or guns that were recovered from felons that were supposed to happen?
And I'm going to let Detective Johnson answer that question, but also to our media partners in the room as well as watching. We are throwing a lot of numbers at you this morning. We are going to follow up, be checking your inboxes for a media release with a lot of these stats in there to help you out. Detective?
So the 56 firearms that were recovered from Crime Stopper tips, some of those are stolen, and some of those were from felons. This year so far, we paid out 15 rewards for a firearm by felon tips that led to an arrest. But those 56 weapons, they were recovered through Crime Stopper tips, some stolen, and some were by felons. So.
What's that program called, and how long has that been in effect?
Okay, so it's Charlotte Crime Stoppers. Oh, you talking about the Firearm by Felon program?
Yeah.
I can't approximately say how long it's been going, but I can get you that information. But I think this was started in the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. But if not, I can get you that information.
You said 15 rewards have been given out roughly in the past couple years. What's the average?
That was this year, the Firearm by Felon program.
Right.
Yes, and The exact amount for those Firearm by Felon rewards is the $500. It's not up to $500. That is the amount for a reward that's paid out.
In terms of how many cases, or how many rewards have you given out over the past couple of years? I mean, it's 15.
For the Firearm by Felon program, I didn't add that up, but I can get you that information.
Has interest in people doing that? Has that gone up or down over the years?
Just from last year, I can tell you that it went up. Last year, we didn't have 15 total Firearm by Felon rewards, and like I said, this year we're increasing all the numbers that we had last year by a crazy amount of numbers. So last year we had 162 arrests already. We have 103. We've already surpassed the number of firearms that we recovered last year by 7. So the program is still growing. It's a lot of work to do, and we look forward to y'all joining us on that journey. So.
Is that $500 issued if you said there is an arrest made pertaining to that charge?
That's correct. If it's an arrest made from that tip, that $500 is paid out.
Does that have to be related then specifically, like do you have to catch the person with the firearm then?
That's correct. That tip comes in and we arrest that felon and he or she is in possession of that firearm, that tip is paid out for that.
I have a question or two for Sergeant Brooks.
Yes, sir. Any other questions for Detective Johnson? All right, thank you, Detective. Yes, sir.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, I'd like to get back to the numbers. The juvenile, the 93% increase. What was happening, a lot of these kids weren't in school last year,
That's correct.
right? So they then are reporting things that may have happened last year. Do you have a sense for what was happening to create that 93% jump? And what kind of impact that can have on kids not being able to report?
Sure. So I'm over adult victims, so I don't want to speak too heavily with the crimes against children, but what I can tell you is what I had mentioned earlier, that a lot of the offenders for juvenile victims live in the home. They are the family members or the acquaintances. So that correlated with them being at home. And when they went back to school, they were able to report that. Pat's Place is a center that is used for interviewing the juvenile victims, and I know that process happens for each and every case with those juveniles.
But a significant number, you believe, of these 54 would actually have happened 2020 or even earlier.
I don't know how many of their cases are delayed reporting in this of the 54 cases. I don't know that information.
In the larger, the adult cases up from 80 to 98, but again, that's not nearly the same number.
Sure.
Percentage of jumps, but and some of those delayed, again, same kind of phenomenon, or COVID may have something to do with the delay and so forth.
So there's a myriad of different reasons that victims or survivors choose to report. Some are a year late, and some can be, we had one just the other day, 20 years later. So a survivor can report at any point, and that's a personal decision of whether they want to and when the right time is, and then we just steer them for advocacy and investigate the crime.
And just to be clear, you've been doing this for a while. Have we seen more delayed reporting, or is it pretty consistent with what it's been over the years?
So I've been here a little over 3 years, and I would say it's consistent in my 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And then did you guys have a breakdown of when those cases happened, since there was some delayed reporting of those 98 adult cases? Correct, yeah, 98 adult cases. Will there be a breakdown, or do you even have that information of what happened this year versus last year?
Are you saying as far as the cases that were delayed, do we know what years they were?
Correct, yeah.
I don't have that with me, but yeah, we could absolutely get that for you.
Thanks.
That these numbers could be larger than what's actually reported.
I'm sorry?
Do you fear that the number could be larger for both adults and juveniles who are actually reporting? Do you fear that the number could be larger for people not actually reporting assaults?
Absolutely. I mean, there is an option also to file an anonymous report. So that's always an option. And from the anonymous report, they can always investigate it criminally. I do think that sexual assaults are underreported. Absolutely.
Is there like an age range that you're saying with these victims? Is it like a certain, like ages that these victims are coming in and reporting, or is it just kind of like a spectrum?
So our units are comprised of 2 separate ones. So 15 and under is the crimes against children, and then our unit is 16 and above. As far as like a median age for adults is what you mean?
Yeah.
I don't have those statistics in front of me, so I don't want to venture to guess, but we could always look into that and find out.
How is what we're seeing here in Charlotte comparable to other cities near our size?
That's an excellent question. I know as far as clearance rates, our city is above the national average, so 33% is the national average, and we trend near 50%. So I know on that aspect, we are higher.
Across the police departments now, are you guys, is it what you're seeing here with this increase in cases over previous years, is that common? Are we seeing a theme?
So this year I reported there was 98, and then I broke that down for you a little bit, and when you actually take out the 10 that are in previous years, the 3 that are in other jurisdiction, we're actually trending kind of on the same spectrum of 2019. So we're actually going to be a little bit further down.
Any other questions for Sergeant Brooks?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, to our media partners, I know this is a flood of data. We're going to pump that media release out to you very shortly. If there are some further breakdowns that you would like to see that are not answered either by this press conference or with that follow-up release, feel free to send those additional requests into our Public Information Office email inbox. Thank you for joining us. And as always, if you have follow-up questions, feel free to contact us offline. Thank you and have a good day.